Okay, so this is something that I did want to come up. Whenever something's going to be processing too many records, or there might be performance issues on the report or the specific CRF that's being used. So again, a lot of data being extracted, so it is going to take some time. And in this case, right, 4,603. And you saw in that previous window, that pop-up that came up, that notify me later. All that is go ahead, run it in the background. I want to continue doing my work, and then it's going to show up. There's going to be kind of a little pop-up that comes up here saying like, hey, this report is complete, and it's going to kind of sit in my reports. That's where you'll be able to access it. Let's just take a look at that. Let me go to my reports. Right, and so here's all the reports that are kind of living here. You could always delete them. Process monitor will just let you know, like if you've kicked off something and it's kind of running in the background, what's the thing that you'll just be able to see, like where it is in the process, making sure that it's completing. And then if anybody else has kind of scheduled a report and it's supposed to run, let's say every Monday of the week, and excuse me, you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at it, you'll be able to look at it here, the output. All right, let's go back to the objects. So here you'll be able to get at all the different fields that are tied to this specific employee business object. So let's just go down to a couple of them, right? You get to see company address, and you'll get to see those icons, right, that I just referenced, like the Boolean one. And here we go. Is this indicates whether the worker is active as of the current date, returns false if the worker is terminated or on certain types of leave. This is a Workday delivered one. It's a Boolean. So all the things that we were talking about already. And then you could have them in specific categories. Oh, sorry, my mouse is doing interesting stuff. I wanted to go to the calculated stuff. So what you kind of see is, yes, there's Workday delivered ones, but then also over here, we kind of see some calculated ones. There is, and that's why this is so large. So when you first get, your tenant initially, like when you're working at the partner and it's a new build, right? You're not going to have these many, but as you're creating these calculated fields, and this is kind of important to note, and I'll come back to it when we create calculated fields, is you decide where these calculated fields will live to, what business object they'll live on. So this is a great place to kind of start and looking at that. Then related business objects. So these are those kind of, where can I hop over, right? Like what are all the business objects that are kind of directly tied to the employee business object? And you'll see that there's a number of them. And then data sources, right? This is the one that Ramesh, you were asking about yesterday. Like, how do I know what data sources and what's the information that's included? This is a great way to navigate for that. Once you start working on reports, I'd say like 80% of the time you're working on the worker business object, and then you'll just pull out specific data sources and stuff related to that area. So once you find like the area that you're going to be working on, you'll 80 to 90% of the time be using like the same information. It's more about just if you need to create any further calculations or any further filtering, so you could get at the population that you need to. And then here is where any sort of reports that were created. So here you have those custom reports as well as the delivered reports that are tied to this business object. So this is a great way and like a great tool, right? If you are starting off at any of the companies, then it's like, why are you going to go ahead and reinvent the wheel and add a lot of kind of dummy data into the system, or kind of just adding a whole bunch of stuff into the tenant that's really isn't necessary. There most likely is always going to be either a delivered report or already a custom report that you just need to tweak. So you could either tweak the existing one, or go ahead and copy like the way I was showing yesterday. You could copy and create your own one. And so again, I just want to emphasize, like, I feel like yesterday there was a little bit of confusion. I tried to clear it up by the end of the session, but that even though Workday provides these delivered reports and you can copy them, you can tweak them, by no means are you restricted to only use their delivered reports as a starting point, right? Like as we saw, you could go ahead and create your own custom report. So I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying that point. It felt like with Sriram's question, there may have been some confusion about where we were going. It was just, I need to have a starting off point. So that's where I started off from, is kind of talking about delivered reports. All right. Any questions so far? So here we go. We have like a number, right, of them. And then what you can do is to get at the one that you want, always look at the kind of this preview and see, does this give you what you need? Okay, this one doesn't have that much information, but it's learning assignments and learning organization. That doesn't seem right to me. Then I can go this way and go through this one, hire date. No, I guess maybe I chose a wrong example, but format date, let's see. This one, somebody I think created as a calculation. But you could start this way. I'm guessing like hire date probably wasn't the greatest example, but let's see. Okay, let's say entry date of hire. That's really what I was looking for, right? So I have this, it's telling me the business object. I want to see more information, extract, this one is, I think this is a calculated field, right? But it gets me like, it'll let me know, right? So you could search for the field that way. This one gave a lot of information, but again, like I feel like you'll kind of know where that data is and just start with the business object. So like I know it's something on the worker that I need. Let me go from there. So typing in the field name itself, you could start from there. You won't have as much junk data as like, this shared tenant would, or then just going to the business, starting with a business object, and then going ahead and searching here for something specific, like let's say terminated or active. Let's do that. So it is like the employee active status. So I know I want this. So this is what I'm looking for. I just confirm like through the description. Does that help? So it's typing a field over here, right? This is that prefix thing, and then you can put whichever one you want, or going to like wherever you think generally that business object should be, and then looking for the specific field name, and then looking at the description to make sure, and the field type. I feel like it's kind of important to just make sure if it meets your needs. And then standard reports, what we were talking about over here, these are all that Workday. I'm sorry, Ramesh, if you could go on mute. I'm just getting background noise. Or it's echoing for me. And the Workday delivered reports, so these are the ones that are, Workday, understands most of the use cases, like a lot of them are around audits or just getting at specific pieces of data around the employee or the changes that the employee is going to make. You'll get to see the descriptions here. And then yesterday, hopefully I emphasized, right, is that report writer, using that Workday reporting tool, those are the ones that can be copied, and you could change information on the copy. But with Expresso, that's something, like that's just the code that Workday is using to just develop in Workday. So if they feel like it's hard to get at the specific pieces of data that you may need that a delivered report wouldn't be able to do in Report Writer, then they build it in Expresso. I feel like they're kind of going away more and more from these Expresso reports because the whole point is, of course, customers want to get at the data, but what they'd really like is to be able to tweak the report to get, more specific to meet their specific needs. And then we'll get into the schedulable, like being able to schedule these reports like on some frequency. Most of them are, you can schedule them, but some of them aren't. And then the domain that the person that's running the report will need access to, so that way things aren't blank when they're running the report. So for instance, okay, let's ignore the thing on top for right now. But over here, like, it could be that I don't have access to, let's say, let's right now I do have access to these this pieces of information, but for whatever reason I didn't have access to the pay information, right? Or I think that's all that's in there. There's nothing else. Or, I'm not able to see a specific position because it's not part of like, or this access, I don't have access to see this manager's org, right? Like, then all the information would be returned as blank, right? I still see the column headings. Or if it's even very specific, just not being able to see maybe their pay information. I can see their names, I can see the position, I can see the manager, but I don't have access to see the pay. Then all of this would just show up blank. And it could even be that, let's say, I've chosen a very higher level org and I'm looking at data that's further down, many subordinates down, and the access to me for that org further down, I don't have access to that org. What I can do, what this would look like is, let's say I'm not supposed to see pay of Tammy. This part would just be blank, but then I'd be able to see everything else. So that's where that security and really understanding security really helps. And so that's why that view security for securable items information, that report helps you kind of figure out what security am I missing, right? Overall, and why can't I see the piece of data that I want to? But it's good for you. So it could be two things, right? Sorry, Ramesh, could you mute yourself? I can't mute you. I don't have access to mute you.
Sure.
Thank you. So, okay, great. So it's just to let you know, like if you're starting to see some blank um, columns, information, so you see the title of the column, but you're just seeing blanks somewhere. It could be one, there might not be data, so that's the first thing to do when you're troubleshooting, right? And then the second thing to do is go ahead and just make sure you have access to see that information. Okay, this is just showing what, just in case if the tenant wasn't working, showing this report. Okay, and then this is, you just do that related actions off of any delivered report, copy the standard report. You can go ahead, change the name, or, like at the end of this will just say copy. And when you're creating your custom report, and as we did yesterday, right, is you give a name, you go ahead and you put, there's several different report types, again, where we're going to kind of be living, or where you are when you're at a customer site is, again, like 80% of the time, it's like I'd say advanced, simple, barely you'll touch on. And then this other stuff is really part of advanced reporting. I'm not too familiar with it. I usually have folks that I can lean on to help with these items, but information is on community for that. All right, so going back and just kind of tying this all together. So steps to creating a report, you go ahead and you choose the report type, right? Most of the time it's going to be advanced, and then you choose the specific report data source, which comes off that primary business object. So if it's on the worker, you figure out which data source you need, you go ahead and do that. And with that data source and that object, there's specific fields that you can add to that report. And if it's an advanced report, you can go ahead and add those related business objects. You can change the ordering of the columns around, and we'll get into the other stuff now. Sure. Oh, and this is around that temporary report that we spoke about, right? Basically, all it's doing is when you flag that temporary report, you're basically saying that mark this ready for deletion whenever that temporary report definition task runs. So if you have it run now or it's run at some sort of frequency, this is going to go ahead and just be deleted. For simple reports, it's after 7 days. For advanced reports and matrix reports, as you saw, right, we can go ahead and determine kind of when this report how long this report should stay active. So there was a report that I put as a deletion, right? And I think the question, Ramesh, you had is like, even though it's marked for deletion, should I be able to still run it? I think that you are, and I was searching for an answer for that. I wasn't able to find it. So what we did is we marked this one for termination, I mean, for being deleted, right? We flagged this one to be deleted. So let me see if the data hasn't changed. Okay. So temporary report, date report definition will be deleted. So that should be today. And let's go ahead. As you saw, I think I am able to run it. So let's go ahead and just test even. We don't have to run it for the whole thing. And so I think all that is doing is flagging it. It's not going to stop you from being able to run it. Okay. And we can, I don't know if we went over this, but with simple reports, you can still sort. You can generally what the default is that the sorting will work where it'll just take, if you don't go ahead and specify anything, it'll take the first column of the report and go ahead and just sort that in ascending order. But you can go ahead and, be it advanced or simple, go ahead and sort it how you like, right? Uh, and you choose fields from the specific report, right? You can or any field on your report's primary business object. So it gives you that option to kind of change things around and sort the way you'd like the information to be seen. And then again, we've kind of emphasized this hopefully enough. So let's go ahead, look back at that simple report. Let me see if I don't remember what I called it, but I'm guessing something. Oh, here we go. Sarah report. And let's look at the report definition, just the results. So we have the sorting, I think we ended up doing, and then the filtering when I want it to be, get at a specific population. Again, I can say that I want folks in a specific supervisory org, and I got to choose which specific instances. Let's turn off. Okay. So now what I want to do is take the same report, and now I want to copy this. Let me just make sure. I just, before I start the next exercise, I just want to see, make sure I didn't miss anything. 1 second. Okay. Instead of copying, let me go ahead and create my own. So the task. Create custom report. All right, let's call this report events. And I'm going to go ahead make this the advanced report. Let's go ahead and enable as a web service. We'll talk about that later. And then I want this to be all workers. I think the batteries are running low on my mouse, so it's not taking me where I want my, oh, optimize. That's why. So what we talked about is that there's certain fields that aren't optimized, and so that's why um, I wasn't able to select the one that I wanted. And this is the one that I want. I'll click OK. All right, so let's start adding fields again. And something that you see, right? Let me go ahead and duplicate so I can show this. Just that simple report. You see here, like I don't have, because you can only have one primary business object and only one data source. You won't have that option that you do in advanced reports, right? Where you can select the business object, and if you need to hop around, you can do that to different business objects and their associated fields. So just want to go ahead and highlight that. All right, now let's start adding some worker fields. So same thing. And I'm sure that this is pretty self-explanatory, right? But you can move the columns around if you like, and change the ordering of the columns. And then these last two, like if you just want this, and if you hover over it, it'll let you know, I want this row to actually be moved to the topmost, because if you have several different rows, it kind of gets time consuming because you can't just drag and drop any of this. Though I think that's functionality that I heard that they're working on. Okay, worker type. All right, so I highlight my stuff. And then these I will add as extra. So let's go ahead. And right now I'm just going ahead and kind of picking like the first ones that kind of come up, even though they might not give me the data I want. But generally what you would do is really like dig into this and make sure you're selecting the right ones. Position. And since we'll probably get into it in the next session when we're talking about pulling these reports into web services and stuff, is you could even override the XML alias, right? Because this is going to be outputted as XML, and you could even figure out the formatting, and we can go into this a little bit more later. But it's good to know, right? Like for these, maybe you do want to take the field names as the column headings, but for some of them that, you know, maybe on the report, I don't care if it's legal first name or last name. Really, the column should be first name, last name, or there's one that, maybe it's just base pay for this one. I want the column heading to be, and this instead of manager level 1 is just manager, you know, things like that. And then you can also have you have the ability to change that here as well. So moving on to sorting, let's go ahead and add that. And that's fine. Sunday. Oh no, sorry, wrong. Sorry. I will do it by last name. So just taking what's already in the report. So fields on the report. I want maybe legal last name and then ascending, and then maybe even add one for the first name, just in case if somebody has the same last name. And there you go. You can just do that. And then the filtering is where sure. Let's see. Okay, I just used remember. Okay, and then so you saw on simple reports, right? You only have 3 tabs: sort, filter, kind of limited. But on advanced, you have the opportunity to have sub filters. You can have prompts, which we've been kind of seeing on some of the delivered reports, right? You can't just run it and get an output. You kind of have to put in maybe dates or look for specific workers. You can go ahead and do that here. Um, Output, do you want this as a table? There's other stuff, and just the report that we were looking at earlier, right? There was some charts on top, you can go ahead and report that as charts. These worklet stuff, this is, enable as a worklet. If you know that this is going to be a report that you're going to be constantly running, and once you've tweaked it to the way you'd like to see it, and it's giving you the information that you'd like to see, so you always have the option to schedule a report and see it in that My Reports thing. But it could be that you just need to keep running this kind of ad hoc, and instead of typing it in every time that you're searching for this specific report, you can have this enabled as a worklet and add it to your landing page. And then you can specify maximum number of rows, just because that worklet. So you could either click on it to run the rest of the report, or just kind of show the information, right? And so if you're going to have this every time you log in appear as a worklet, you want to make sure that, if there's going to be thousands of rows being returned, that doesn't make any sense to kind of show on your landing page. It's going to really hurt performance. You're not going to, it's just going to spin when you get to the landing page. That should just be run ad hoc or be running as a schedule. But if it's just, like a chart, a small kind of chart that you need to consume kind of maybe on a daily basis, it makes sense to have as a workload. And then, if you want to add any help text around this, like what is this report kind of doing, more of a description. And I think if I hover over, so just to help your users, right? Like what this report is doing, and making sure that sometimes, right, like when you're looking at this, you're not going to know why you need to run this specific report. So you have several different options to let folks know like why you created this report and when it's beneficial for them to use, right, as a functional user. And then the data source description kind of helps you know if you need to keep anything in mind when creating this report using a specific data source. All right, and then the share stuff we kind of, I think, touched on yesterday, maybe. All right, sorry about that. So the share tab will let you know if when you create a report, you are the only one that has access to run it, and you're, as you see here, right? Like I'm logged in as Steve Morgan, so he owns this report, so he can run it. He's the only one that's going to see it. If somebody else tries to search for this report, the Sarah CR Advanced, they're not going to see it in their tenant. So you can go ahead, share with specific authorized groups or users. So over here, maybe I have Joey Banks listed. If I want a specific user to be able to see it and run it, and then maybe HR administrators. I probably typed in something wrong. Okay, so maybe and you can select several, you're not tied to one, but this is different than having access to the data. So there's this one layer first of having access to the report and report writer, right? Then there's the other access of being able to see the information that's going to be outputted. That's going to be configured by your domain security policy. And then advanced, optimized for performance, if you want to freeze specific things. We'll talk about the web services in the next one. Prism is another thing that I know some customers have, being able to take data from this report and ingest data from other third party or other systems that you have and kind of see all the information together. And then here's that temporary report. So for simple reports, you go ahead, you select this, and it's just 7 days. But on advanced reports, you can kind of, yes, you flagged it, and you can kind of go ahead and say, like, if you want this to be more than 7 days or when you want it to be. All right, I think I did everything that I wanted to do there. Let me just check. Okay, and then we'll continue building on this. Let's see, what did I do? So I wonder if I could just take off the website and stuff. So, all right, so hopefully that goes away then. Okay, and let's go ahead and test this. Let's see what comes back. Only 2. And I'm guessing if I were just to run this too, it's probably going to just be 2. Test just helps you, like if you're going to be returning a lot of information. So this won't help me with the thing that I need to further do. So give me 1 second. Let me change the report up a little bit. Let's just do global modern services. Okay, maybe there's just not enough data. Or it could be, again, security, but let's see. Let's test it first. Or it could be because I'm logged in as Steve Morgan, and so he doesn't have access to a lot of the information. I might just log in as do events. Let me try just one more thing. Okay, let me see if this gives me anything. Otherwise, I will log in as JoyPex. Okay, this is good, and I think if I go ahead, run it, it should give me a lot of information, hopefully. 18. Oh, that's not a lot, but I think it'll get me what I need. All right, so walk through the stuff for advanced report. Now, what I'm going to do is the shared owner. Talked about that. All right, let's go ahead, add some more fields to this report to kind of show how you can kind of do that one hop away to a related business object. So let's do that. Add it. Maybe, yeah. Let's add this. Okay, so I want to go to the dependent. So I want to see, what these maybe for benefits. Maybe I'm putting this report together for whatever reason for benefits, and I want to look for, does these employees have dependents? So what type of dependent? Employee. So the details of the dependent, great. And then I want to know the legal first name of that dependent. Legal last. The relationship to the dependent. And the age. Okay, let's see, hopefully we can get some people. Okay, so what we're seeing here, so this is 10. And then you see, right, because I went to a completely different business object, but related to this, now this is kind of letting me know this is the information that's kind of grouped together, the dependents. Here's their information. Some of them don't have dependents, and some of them do. So that's where you're going to see the blanks. And you'd be able to see this information. So let's go to Joy Banks, for instance. Let's just go up here. I can see the same data, right? Like it's all getting pulled from somewhere. So let's go. Hopefully, Steve Morgan has access to this. Joy Banks. And I want to see benefits. Let's see if it's in there. Great. Dependents, William Banks. And here's his information, right? Let's go ahead and run this. I want to see if I can get more out of the 18, like besides spouse, if there's something else. And what's interesting is, like over here, I can go ahead and filter. Once it goes into this kind of layout, it's harder to filter and sort. So that's where that sub filter really helps. If you're looking for a specific, okay, so there's child, spouse. Great. And then, oh, I mentioned this yesterday, but mentioning again, right, just for emphasis. So anything that you're not going to be able to drill into and see it further in the tenant is all going to be just kind of this way in black, and you can't click on it. But if you need to drill into something further, it's going to show up like this. So, and where that's helpful is that whole self-referencing thing, right? So if we go to, or the instance, the ones that have anything to do with the object, the report fields that have anything to do with the object, those are the ones that you'll be able to click on. If it's text, right, you could still have, the worker that you're pulling. You want like Joy Banks. If I added Joy, I wanted to see Joy Banks, but I want to be able to click on the employee. I just need to make sure that I select the appropriate report field, right? That has anything to do with objects. That's where you're going to be able to drill into it further, which is really nice. But if it's text, numeric, or any of those simple types of class report fields, you won't go ahead and be able to click on that. So over here, like, if I went ahead, sorry, and let me run, I think I ran this already, right? So here now I have 24. I want to see, let's say, Catherine Morgan. I think that's what I did here. So here, William Banks, I'm getting to see all the pieces of data that I need to about the specific dependent. So let's close that. Let me close that. Oops, I just closed that. Okay, let's go back to, oops. There we go. Let's go back to that, and let's go ahead and add those subfilters. So I want to get at specific data, and then from there we'll go into calculated fields. So going to the filter is only going to be on your primary business object, right? So in this case, our primary business object is worker. The related business object is that dependence, right? And as you saw, when I ran that report, I could filter on, just from the report, I could filter on the columns, I can sort the columns, but I can't do that under the related business objects. Those kind of get kind of grouped together and they have like there's like sub columns. So the top header column is just dependents, and then you have those sub columns. You can't in the report. It's not as interactive where you can go ahead and sort those sub or filter on those sub columns, right? So, and just to show that again. Run this again. Right, I can do all the filtering I want, or I can even sort it. But when it gets to this dependent one, that related business object, I can't do any of that in here. Let me finish the thought with the sub filter, and then I'm going to come back to something. So let's go ahead and add further filters for that I want for the dependents, right? So it's dependent. Here's business object, and then now I can add stuff in here. And then something I didn't say is like you could have and or, right? I've been just using and, but could be if it meets any of the criteria for the rows that you have as an or rather than an and. Dependence. Oops. I'll take this one. I thought this was going to be multi-instance, but maybe it's not here. And then it's not empty. So you'll see in the selection list, not in the selection list. So before I was doing the org, supervisory org and selecting specific supervisory orgs, right? And specifying which ones they are. So selecting specific ones. It could be that, you know, I just don't want a specific one to show, like maybe global modern services. And then I go ahead and not in the selection list. So I've selected the ones that I really don't want to show, but everything outside of that, it can show, and then is empty or is not empty. So I'm not going to say like anybody that does where the dependent actually shows and it's not a blank field, I want that to kind of show. Let me go ahead and add another row. And then hire date. No, why that's not showing. Let's do this. So let me select it all. Okay, I just selected the wrong one. And then hire date, and you'll see depending on and you have a number, right, like of other things. I just selected frequently used, but the operators can be a number of things. So I'm going to look at, and so that way I can start prompting on things too, and show that piece is, let's go ahead, greater than or equal to. And so I could specify over here like what I want that date to be, but let's say I want to go ahead and prompt the specific user for it. So let's go into this, prompt the user for the value, and this is the starting prompt, and then let's do the same thing with this one. And we'll make this list. And we're going to prompt on this too. And this is the ending prompt. So we're looking for basically a date range and making sure that the higher date falls. So one that, oh, and I forgot to fill this out, is not empty. So any worker or employee that has dependents and then that fall into a specific hire date. So the starting and ending. So that's just the duration. And then the prompts. So now that I have prompts, right? And I said, and what that just did is, because I said in the previous tab, hey, I want a user to go ahead and fill out that date range, right? And I've said that this is going to be, that you're going to prompt the user for this value. It's not going to be something that I'm going to default into the report, but as soon as they run the report, the users are going to be prompted for these dates. All I did was, by checking that checkbox, which is, instead of me going ahead and manually adding these rows, anything that's kind of flagged on this report as being a prompt, go ahead and just add those rows. Right now I only had two, so of course it's like 1 click versus 2 clicks. But if there were several prompts that I would want, I maybe, let's say I had 6 or 7, right? Instead of going ahead and doing that, just go click this, and the biggest thing is label for prompt. I could say starting hire date and ending hire date for that. I can, default values in if I want to. I don't have to, or specifying a specific value and requiring those specific fields that you've probably seen wherever there's red asterisks. So on this, like, some of them you don't have to require. It just depends on your functional needs. But if you say that you want this required, the report won't run until the user goes ahead and puts something in. You can also have it that do not prompt at runtime. So, it's because you've already put in some sort of default value. So those are all the things. Let's go ahead, run it, and let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of the higher dates are. I know what I'm 2000. Okay, let's go ahead and run this report. And to today's date. And let's see how many we get back. So we had 24, but now with, oh, still did 24. Wasn't there a 2008 one? No. Let me make sure I saved it properly. That's the way. And my dependence is not. Let me run this again. It's just okay. I'm not sure what's not working. I'm not expecting to get all of these because if I look at the hire date, yeah, this is what should be happening. I'll have to dig into why that's not working, and not everyone has dependents, so dependent is not empty. So I'm probably not pulling something correctly on the field. Let me see one more minute, and then if I can't figure it out, we'll come back to it later. It's probably something with the logic. Maybe that's fine. Yeah, it looks fine to me, but it must be something else that I'm doing. All right, but I think you guys understand what I'm trying to get at. All right. Okay, so any questions around that? I know this wasn't probably the best of examples, but at least how filtering and sub-filtering works, and then the prompting piece. Any questions, Ramesh? Okay, I will move on. So calculated fields. So as you saw with this one, and let's just go ahead and run this again. Oh, sure. I'm going to try one more thing. It's kind of bothering me. Why this isn't working the way I expected it to. Sorry, I think the screen froze. 1 second. Can you guys still hear me? I want to make sure that it's not the internet. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay, thank you. Let's see if I have to connect again. All right, so we have this again, and I think now it's working. Okay, so over here, talking about calculated fields next, but let me see if there's anything that I want to highlight here. So we talked about these populating undefined prompt defaults, right? This is where, you've already said in the filtering or in the sub filters that you want to have specific prompts, or there's ones that are associated with the data source itself. By clicking this, you'll have all those rows already kind of get populated for you, and then you can tweak them as you like. And this is commonly used in financials. I don't, just for us, like it's a quick click, you can just go ahead and do that. And that's where it helps. All right, I think we've talked about related business objects enough, but just in case, this is here, automatically links related business objects. So I guess in relational databases terms, that's just, those child tables. So going from your main or your primary business object to the information, just like the way we were, right? We were going from worker to the dependent one and pulling pieces of data from there. All right, here we go. We'll go ahead and create a calculated field now. So we're, it's great. Workday has all these delivered fields, but there might be data that you need, like there's specific requirements, like for instance, the hire date may need to look a little bit differently, right? In certain countries, you have the month. I mean, in the US, like you have the month, day, year, but in other countries, you'll have day, month, year. You might need certain formatting on that, or you need to say like, oh, is this base pay, um, low, medium, or high, or something like that, or concatenate information, take a substring of certain pieces of information, a number of things that you would want. So that's where calculated fields comes into the picture. So let's go ahead and look at, I want my hire date to be a specific way. So let me close this window. So change the formatting of the hire date. Let me see this. Let me see if that makes a difference. And I think there was a good slide. I'm just looking for it in our deck about this. So let me bring that over too. Yeah, a user can't see a report field at all. The user does not belong to a security group that has access to the report field. And then, so I think this is where your question, right? It falls into either of these. So it's that the user, so just like what I was saying, right? Like if you can't see it for anyone, that most likely is that you don't have access. So then I would run with this report. I don't know if it's the tenant or my connection. So I would run this. Trying to get at, just type in SSM, let's see. Let's see. Right, so let's say I want just this one. Then I will make sure I go here And I want to make sure that, let's say, Steve Morgan, and I want to see the details. So this is basically telling me, yep, the government IDs he has. Oh, sorry, there's like background. Is that he has view modify for view modify access. So it looks like that I'm good on that specific field, right?
Mm.
So this is how I would go about it. I would always first, so there's two things that I would always check, right? Like one, can I not see anything on the report for that specific column, or there's just a here or there, right? And once, let's say if it falls into like I can't see it for anyone, most likely it has to do with security, and I need to go to the domain security policy, find out, what that report field, right? Because every report field is governed by the domain security policy for that task or report field. Go to that, see if I'm part of, like, can I view it? Am I part of any of the security groups that are listed that can view this information? Okay, if that's yes, and now it's that, like if I can see a couple of people's social security number and not others, the next thing I would do is just make sure that social security numbers are available in like the specific profile by going to somebody's profile and just seeing, can I even see that information outside of the report, like the tab area? And is it just empty, or is there information there? And then if it's certain people that are showing up on the report, certain social security numbers that I'm seeing and not others, then I feel like it falls into this. It could be maybe the org, that specific org I'm not allowed to see because it's constrained by Steve Morgan can't see several maybe levels down, or he can only see his direct report. So there's a number of ways. But this is definitely the report I would use to try to figure out where can I not see this information, right? If it's self-service, if I can't see my own information, then there's something wrong here. If it's that I can't see other people's information, is it on the person data tab, or is it under government IDs, right? And just making sure I have access to that. Okay, we'll go back to creating a calculated field. Right now, I just wanted to show you about changing the formatting of something specific. So let's go ahead and do this one for the hire date. That's not work alone. And format date. Let's look at, so there's going to be a number in here of things that you could do. And most of the time you're going to be doing formatting, concatenating, or some maybe arithmetic calculation, or doing constants. So hopefully we can go through a couple of them today, but then the rest of them are just going to kind of come with time. Like as you need them, you can look at them and play around with them. So what I wanted to do was format date.